Hello ladies and gentlemen. In the last three parts we've been looking at, or I've been talking about this prototype and how to maybe improve it for Rudy, whose strabismic eye gives his brain the wrong information about where objects are. So I figured let's take a little look at this game and how it works and what we're doing and how we've extended it. So this is Pocket Code, and in Pocket Code it's a visual language designed for kids to program on their phone, and it's fantastic for prototypes. All the different parts of the game are defined here: the helicopter, the droplet it drops, the fire, the robots, the buttons, the steam. And if we play the game, you can get some idea of what's going on. Here's the helicopter, which you'd see through the cyan lens of the 3D glasses. And with the so one eye only sees the helicopter and the droplet, and the other eye only sees the robot and the fire. And every time we play, the helicopter gets smaller and faster, and the robot gets smaller and faster, and it gets harder and harder, and you can figure out how your kid is improving. Now, for Rudy, he thinks that the helicopter is over the robot when it's way off to the left. So he needs some kind of feedback, so his brain, he thinks it's here, you see. So his brain can figure out, well, no, this isn't right. So he can learn to use his left eye differently, so that his left eye can learn that the helicopter's over the robot now. And what we're going to try to do is we add a button, which you see here in the left corner. When I hit this button, everything starts flashing between the colours, which you only see, where you only see the different parts of the game in each eye, and the purple and the green, which both eyes can see simultaneously. So for Rudy, I'm expecting it'll be the helicopter will end up jumping about in its position, and gradually he'll learn, with a bit of luck, to see the position of the helicopter differently with his weak strabismic left eye, until, as the flashing happens, the helicopter no longer jumps about, and that's how he can train his brain to perceive the position differently, which is to do with vergence, how your brain takes the incoming signal and places it relative to the signal coming from the other eye. So let's have a look at how we've done this. Inside, so what we've done is we would like to add a button which causes the helicopter and the robots to start flashing. And we would like to do this in a simple way. In fact, it took less than half an hour to do this. But there's a few things we should consider. So let's talk about how we solve this problem architecturally. We've got to think, we might not want, oh that's a shame, I can't scroll using this recording tool. Nope, it won't let me. There. We would like to be able to, in the future, change the rate of the flicker, change what causes the flicker to happen. Maybe instead of a button, have a slider, maybe automate the triggering according to how successful the player is being. So what we do is we put it in a central place. At the moment it's inside the button, this button object that we've built. So actually the button object is just a grey square, and we've said that when the program starts, we set a variable assist flicker to off effectively, and we place that little grey square in the bottom left corner. When we tap it, we toggle, so we switch between setting that variable to 1 or to 0, and that means, is that square on or off? In other words, we turn the square into a button. So all not terribly interesting, but that's how it works in Pocket Code. So when program starts, this is an event. This is sent by the program whenever it turns on. And what we do is here, we go into an infinite loop forever. And we keep looking at that variable, assist flicker. Remember, that gets toggled between 1 and 0 each time you touch the grey square, which represents our button. If it's on, What we then do is we broadcast our own event. We send a flicker out, we send an event out into the game, which is just a piece of text, flicker 1. And it can be picked up by anything that's listening, for flicker 1. We wait a fifth of a second and we send flicker 2, and we wait a fifth of a second. And we just keep doing this until that grey button is touched, assist flicker becomes 0, this if statement is no longer true, and that means we stop sending the flicker. The beauty of this is that we can totally change what causes this to be triggered. We can, for example, have a slider, so instead of waiting 0.2 seconds, we can make that dependent on the position of a slider. We can easily add extra events. We're totally flexible. We've delegated the responsibility to each of the in-game objects how they should handle these events, and it gets better. What we ideally want to do is we don't want to have to change anything we've already written. We want the solution to be orthogonal, because it's a bit of a cross-cutting concern, really. We just want the thing to flash. We don't want to have to alter its code. So let's look inside the helicopter for how we've done this. And we can do this really easily in Pocket Code. The helicopter code is actually quite complicated. There's quite a lot going on here, a lot of animation, a lot of positioning, broadcasting quite a lot of events. But all we have to do for this flickering effect is listen for that flicker 1 and flicker 2. When we receive flicker 1, we change the colour of the helicopter. Remember, it's all about objects in Pocket Code, so all of these things you see here are all related to that helicopter object. When we receive flicker 2, we clear the graphic effects and it goes back to its default. So again, let's have a quick look. In this helicopter object, we can go into looks, and we see that the helicopter object is made up of all these individual frames, which have actually come from a 3D rendering. So when we receive flicker 1, we change the colour, and it goes to purple. And then when we receive flicker 2, we remove the graphical effects, and it goes back to this colour. And that's it. That's all we have to do. It's that simple. It would be a lot more complicated in many languages and frameworks that I know. Touch the button, we activate the flicker, we send these events. The robots and the helicopter and the fire all pick up those events and start flickering. So just like with the helicopter, if I look inside any of these events, for example the drop target, beg your pardon, you'll see the same thing here at the bottom in this case. When you receive flicker 1, set the colour, modulate the colour by 255, and when you receive flicker 2, clear the graphic effects, so it ends up flickering. And all I had to do was put that into each of the objects, the dropper, the dropped, the fire, the drop target, scenery 2 and scenery 3, and we're done. So we'll take this to Rudy and we'll see what Rudy makes of it, and hopefully it'll help. Thank you very much.